Good morning, my dear students. Our today's topic is measures to correct excess and deficient demand. The problems of excess demand and deficient demand occur when the current aggregate demand is more or less than aggregate demand required for full employment equilibrium. These problems can be solved by bringing a change in the level of aggregate demand in the economy. There are number of measures to control excess and deficient demand. However, the scope of syllabus restricts the study to two main measures: monetary policy and fiscal policy. Fiscal policy. Government spending is an important component of aggregate demand. This measure is a part of fiscal policy and is termed as expenditure policy of the government. The government spends huge amount on public works like construction of roads, flyovers, buildings, railway lines, etc. Changes in such expenditure directly affect the level of aggregate demand in the economy and help to control the situation of excess and deficient demand. Monetary policy. The Reserve Bank of India is empowered to regulate the availability of credit and money supply in the economy through its monetary policy. It is policy of central bank to control money supply and credit creation in the economy. Monetary policy helps to control the situations of excess and deficient demand through its quantitative and qualitative instruments. First, we discuss about excess demand. How to control excess demand. Monetary policy, quantitative measures. Bank rate policy. It is defined as the rate of interest at which RBI lends to commercial banks. It is in a situation of excess demand, the RBI increases the bank rate, which makes the credit expensive. It forces commercial banks to increase their lending rates, which discourages borrowers from taking loans. It reduces the availability of credit in the economy and helps to correct excess demand. Open market operations. It refers to sale and purchase of securities in the open market by the central bank. During excess demand, central bank offers securities for sale. Sale of securities reduces the reserves of commercial banks so that their capacity to offer loans will be reduced. Legal reserve requirements. Commercial banks are obliged to maintain legal reserves. An increase in such reserves is a direct method to reduce the availability of credit. There are two components of legal reserves: cash reserve ratio or CRR. It is defined as the portion of total deposit which a commercial bank requested to keep with the RBI in the form of cash reserves. In a situation of excess demand, RBI raises the CRR. This will reduce the cash deposit left with the commercial banks to be loaned out. Statutory liquidity ratio SLR. It is defined as that portion of total deposits which a commercial bank required to keep with itself in the form of liquid assets. In a situation of excess demand, RBI raises SLR. It reduces the amount of effective cash resources of commercial banks and limit their credit creating power. So the credit availability decreases. Qualitative measures. Margin requirement. Margin requirement refers to difference between the market value of security offered and the value of amount lent. When the economy is suffering from excess demand, central bank increases the margin, which restricts the credit creating power of banks. Borrowers find it less attractive to borrow money and it decreases the level of aggregate demand. Moral suasion. During excess demand, the central bank advises, requests, or persuades the commercial banks not to advance credit for speculative or non essential activities. It helps to reduce availability of credit and aggregate demand. Next, fiscal policy measures to correct excess demand. Fiscal policy is the expenditure and revenue policy of the government. The instruments of fiscal policy is used to control excess demand are taxation or revenue policy, public expenditure policy, and deficit financing. Taxation. The main source of revenue to the government is called taxation. In the situation of excess demand, government raises the rates of all taxes, especially on the rich. This reduces the purchasing power and consumption expenditure. In short, aggregate demand gets reduced. Public expenditure. In order to improve standard of living of people, public expenditure is incurred by the state. In a situation of excess demand, the government reduces public expenditure. It will result in a fall in demand for goods and services. Deficit financing. In order to correct excess demand, government should reduce deficit financing or printing of notes to excess demand down. These are the monetary and fiscal policies to correct excess demand. Thank you.